I don't know how to go on without her.
You don't. You take her with you.
Said several months after the conclusion of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Peter has seemingly picked up his life. He continues to be Spider-Man and deals with whatever crimes he can while attempting to reconcile with the guilt of his new life. However, Peter can't rest yet, as dark forces within Oscorp are still working in the background, plotting their revenge against Spider-Man and seeking to bring upon a new world order. This is the world of The Amazing Spider-Man 3, well, at least a fan-made version of the plot created by artist Max K, who developed a 115-page long script detailing how they'd conclude the story of The Amazing Spider-Man. And let me tell you, this conclusion to the story is one of the best I've read in years.
I think I still blame Peter for everything that happened. You know, as Spider-Man, I've done everything I could. I protected the city. I've stopped the threats. But as Peter, I failed. Peter Parker can't live while the city needs Spider-Man. And maybe he doesn't deserve to.
The story begins several months after the conclusion of the second movie. Peter has gone about his life after Gwen's death. He's even helped the remaining Stacys move out of their apartment to escape the painful memories of losing their loved ones. He still blames himself for what happened, and the script does a good job portraying this sense of responsibility. For one thing, Peter hasn't spoken to Aunt May for several months, and he blames himself heavily for what happened to Harry and the Lizard. Currently, Peter works at the Daily Bugle as a photographer, mainly taking photos of Spider-Man for the paper, but it seems like they don't really pay him all that frequently, as in the story, he's yet to be paid for last month's photos. J. Jonah Jameson acts exactly how you'd expect, and I gotta say, I think Max K nailed J. Jonah's energy. Despite the guilt Peter feels for what happened to his loved ones, it's made clear that he loves his time as Spider-Man. In fact, being Spider-Man is now what makes him happy, and he'd prefer to stay that way if he could. The reason? Well, it seems Peter has created a crisis of identity. He believes that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are two different people, and now he currently resents his life as Peter. Peter is the one who feels guilty, the one who can no longer live with himself, out of guilt for Gwen's death and being unable to help Harry despite his desperation. We see this rejection of Peter Parker's side perfectly in two sequences. One where he seemingly visits Gwen's grave and reminisces about the events in his life, and one where he suffers from a nightmare. In this nightmare, Peter is falling through an empty cityscape. He sees his reflection in the window next to him. However, something's wrong. For whatever reason, he cannot pull his mask off. The mask has seemingly fused to his skin and now refuses to be taken off, symbolizing Peter's new embrace of his Spider-Man identity. Once he does finally pull the mask off, all he sees is an empty face with no features. Peter wakes up shaking, desperately trying to find his mask. He cannot bear being Peter any longer, and he longs to be Spider-Man yet again. Through the help of Mary Jane Watson and his Aunt May, who he reveals his identity to near the end, Peter completes a transformation, once again accepting his responsibility as Spider-Man and learning to live as Peter.
Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I've been given this great power, and tonight I have to prove that Spider-Man deserves it, and that Peter Parker can live with it. If this is my destiny, it's time I face it.
Mary Jane Watson was originally present in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Her role in the story is completely unknown, but we can assume that she would have had a major role in the third movie. In the story, when Peter finally visits his aunt, she has a guest over, a woman named Anna, who is May's next door neighbor. Anyways, Anna is there to have lunch with May, and it seems her niece has currently moved to the city and is now living with her. This niece is, of course, Mary Jane Watson, and her introduction and first meeting with Peter is awkward, to say the least. As the story makes clear, Anna and Aunt May are trying to pair the two together. This is so obvious that I get secondhand embarrassment reading it. Anyways, MJ is currently in New York in order to find a job. It seems MJ used to be some kind of model, but she doesn't have very fond memories of that career. Luckily, Peter Parker helps her get a new job at the Daily Bugle using pictures she got of Spider-Man. In terms of her relationship with Peter, it's pretty well done. MJ just has this adventurous, curious, and carefree attitude which perfectly bounces off Peter.
Well, hypothetical question. Let's say you're Spider-Man.
Alright, I think I can manage that.
No, scratch that. Let's say you want to kill Spider-Man.
Okay?
However, it's this curious nature that causes her to get herself and Peter into danger, which is used as a way to once again trigger Peter's guilt about losing someone he cares about. He has a great relationship with her, sure, and they get along very well, but that's the problem. This connection makes him feel uncomfortable, like the very idea of being happy is something he must reject out of fear of losing someone he's grown to care about. It's safe to say that the Sinister Six would have been the main antagonists of The Amazing Spider-Man 3, and thanks to plenty of scenes from the film, we have a good idea on what the roster would have been like. In the script, we're told that Oscorp went bankrupt after a series of shady business dealings went public. As a result of this bankruptcy, the company was bought off by an unknown party. However, despite this, the New York building is meant to be completely empty. However, this isn't the case, as deep inside, a man named Mr. Fierce and Adrian Toombs are helping to assemble a new group of super criminals, starting with the most powerful. When Electro's form was destroyed at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he didn't actually disappear. His body simply scattered all throughout Oscorp's power grid. With the help of Adrian Toombs, they were able to track Electro's energy and reform him into a semblance of a body. Electro is now yellow, and his body is now unstable and on the verge of collapsing. Electro had become pure electrical energy, so now the only way they can maintain his form is through a conductor-like suit that holds his body in place. You might think that him being yellow now means he's much more powerful. However, that's far from the case. Electro is actually much weaker, and the yellow color actually indicates just how unstable his form has become, something that keeps him in perpetual agony. Fierce, however, wants Electro to be in perpetual pain, as he sees this as a way to control him. The conductors also help them keep Electro in check by allowing them to forcefully dissipate his physical form.
Well, first off, it's an eagle suit, and I'm afraid it's spoken for.
Adrian Toombs was a scientist at Oscorp whose life's work was stolen by Osborn, and his experimental suit would be shut down and defunded. However, with Harry Osborn now in charge, he allows Adrian back into the company and gives him the resources to work on his vulture.
I'm a freaking eagle!
Sorry, I mean eagle suit. Toombs isn't a person who has a grudge against anybody. He's already got what he wanted and now serves as both the lead engineer and chemist in the group. Now the Rhino is similar to how he was in the second film. After being sent to prison, he'd find a way to escape, and after, he'd become a weapons distributor for Mr. Fierce. The Lizard is never an official member of the Sinister Six. The group did attempt to recruit him, but out of guilt and shame for what he did in the first movie, he refuses to help the Sinister Six, to the point where he even helped Spider-Man fight them off. At the end of the second act, there's a major fight sequence between 3 members of the Sinister Six and Spider-Man. They fight within an ice rink in New York, and although Spider-Man does struggle initially, he manages to successfully take all 3 of them out. Now, as it turns out, this entire fight scene was a huge distraction in order to achieve their true goal, which involved Black Cat breaking Harry Osborn out of prison. Here, she uses a black and white Oscorp suit, which is described as looking similar to the Green Goblin suit. Much like the Green Goblin suit, it pumps out some kind of chemical which enhances her physical capabilities, allowing her to perform impossible maneuvers. One side effect of this compound, however, is the user's hair turning white. Felicia is the most interesting character in this lineup. She isn't really traditionally evil or self-interested. Her goals derive from her compassion, as she believes Harry is a good man and that he can seek redemption. Harry Osborn, the so-called leader of this new group, still suffers from the disease from the second film and has tasked Adrian to create some kind of cure. Harry has brought together the Sinister Six for one purpose and one purpose only: to kill Spider-Man, as his hatred for him hasn't died down even to this day. However, there does seem to be a bit of hesitation within him. Perhaps it's because of Felicia Hardy, or maybe the good man he used to be is affecting his judgment, as Harry is beginning to feel remorseful for causing Gwen's death. This confliction does lead him to do something he'll forever regret, but you'll have to read the script to find this out for yourself. All you need to know is that Harry's journey of redemption is amazing to read, and it'll leave you satisfied and bittersweet about how his story comes to a close. Throughout the script, Harry believes that he is the true leader of the Sinister Six, but as Felicia Hardy makes clear, the true leader is Mr. Fierce. Mr. Fierce throughout the script is this enigmatic figure, always concealed in shadow. Sure, Harry thinks he's the leader, but Mr. Fierce has such a commanding presence and aura that most members see him as the true leader. In the story, we learn through a flashback that Mr. Fierce is actually Otto Octavius, a man who has worked in the shadows all his life, manipulating Osborn and Kurt Connors to achieve his goals. A goal where he seeks to become the hub of innovation and weapons manufacturing in the entire world. Otto Octavius is revealed to be the man who purchased Oscorp, and he's managed to replicate the powers and gear of all the villains in a weaker form, now seeking to sell them to different military groups or anyone who can pay. By the end of the film, Spider-Man would confront Otto at the Oscorp building, and through his past experience, he'd manage to take out each villain one by one. This isn't the full story of Max K's The Amazing Spider-Man 3. I've left a decent chunk of the story out of this video, as I truly believe you should check the story out for yourselves. I left a link to the script and artwork in the description.
I'm Peter Parker, and I'm Spider-Man. I am more than this, and I always will be.